Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to take a stack of, well, some pretty dense source material articles, frameworks, internal research, and really give you the shortcut to the knowledge that matters.
And today we're diving into a topic that, on the surface, can sound a little bit dry.
Yeah, cloud cost forecasting
Mm-hmm.
sounds like pure accounting.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're working in the cloud, you know that forecasting is, it's anything but dry. It's really the critical capability that lets you make real-time decisions.
It manages investor expectations, and ultimately it defines how well your organization is turning that cloud usage into actual business value.
Exactly. If you can't look forward, you just can't manage the present.
So, you, our listener, have given us some extensive source material on the FinOps framework's forecasting capability.
Yep.
And our mission today is to, move past the simple definitions and really get into the strategy. What actions do you need to take to do this well?
And how does an organization go from just looking at old bills to actually driving future performance? That framing is perfect because it immediately gets to the biggest misconception about forecasting. There.
It really does. We are not trying to be fortune tellers. Our sources, they define forecasting as creating a quantitative model.
Okay, a model of what?
A model of the anticipated future cost
Yeah.
and, importantly, the corresponding value of your cloud systems. It pulls together statistical methods, historical spend, and, plan changes.
But there's a real aha moment in the source material that kind of anchors this whole thing.
There is. It's this quote from Paul Sappho who said, "The goal of forecasting is not to predict the future."
But to tell you what you need to know to take meaningful action in the present.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That quote is just the ultimate distillation of the whole FinOps philosophy.
It totally is. It
Like-
shifts the mindset from, passive reporting to active, accountable management. Okay, so let's unpack the core mechanics first. This is where a lot of organizations trip up. We hear three terms all the time: estimating, forecasting, and budgeting. They're super related, but they have to be distinct. So how does the framework draw that line?
That distinction is just paramount for the process flow. So let's look at estimating first.
Okay.
Estimating is usually investigative. It's driven by engineering or architecture, and it's focused on a technical question.
Like, if we build this new thing, what will it cost?
Exactly. If we build this service with this database, what's the expected cost of just those resources? It's very focused on the technical unit costs.
Got it. So what's forecasting then?
Forecasting is the next layer. It establishes a broad, shared expectation among all the stakeholders.
Product, finance, engineering, everyone.
Everyone. An expectation of what future spending and value will look like. It's more holistic. And once that shared expectation is locked in, the forecast model becomes the key input that feeds directly into budgeting.
Which is the final step where finance actually allocates the funding.
And sets the limits, yes.
So estimating is the technical calculation, forecasting is the shared expectation, and budgeting is the formal financial commitment.
That's it.
The forecast is really the bridge then. But bridges can have some friction. When engineering comes up with an estimate, what does forecasting add to turn that into a reliable, shared expectation?
It adds context and accountability, and it does that primarily in the form of a total cost of ownership, or TCO.
Right.
A pure engineering estimate might just cover the cost of a virtual machine and data transfer. A robust forecast model has to include documentation of timing, implementation details, pricing models.
And that holistic TCO for the system.
Exactly.
I want to pause on TCO there for a second. Are we just talking about the cloud bill, or does that scope include things like operational labor or shared services?
Oh, you have to include the organizational overhead. A simple estimate without shared service costs is, well, it's a recipe for budget variance.
So the things like centralized networking or security tools.
Or even a portion of the FinOps team's labor. The forecast, since it's a financial expectation, requires all those components to be modeled and allocated. It becomes the full story of the investment.
Not just a list of resources.
Right. And to create these models, the strategy has to be collaborative. You need FinOps, engineering, product finance, and leadership all in the conversation.
Okay, let's talk about the accountability factor, because this is where the capability really gets its teeth right.
It is.
Once that robust TCO-inclusive forecast is agreed upon, the budget owner is basically signing a contract with the organization.
That's absolutely correct. The source material is very clear on this. The budget owner has to live up to that forecast. If things change and there's a projected shortfall, they are immediately responsible for seeking what's called variance funding to address it.
So you don't wait for the bill to arrive at the end of the month.
No. If the forecast says you're going to overspend by 15% next quarter, you have to take action today. Optimize something or go ask for more budget.
That sounds like a powerful way to keep everyone grounded. But I mean, that level of complexity doesn't happen overnight. Let's map out the journey. Can you walk us through the maturity model for forecasting? Crawl, walk, run.
Of course. And almost every organization starts in the crawl phase. It's a necessary starting point.
Okay.
Here, forecasting is manual, it's often ad hoc, and it relies almost exclusively on simple historical spending. And that only really works if your workloads are super stable.
And I'm guessing the visibility is pretty limited.
Very limited, highly aggregated, maybe just by the top-level business unit. But the critical pain point here, the real issue, is organizational.
How so?
Engineering and operations teams are typically not involved in creating the forecasts or tracking them. So finance sets an expectation, engineering executes, and you get constant surprise bills.
Yeah, that disconnection where the people spending the money aren't involved in setting the expectation.
Yeah.
That must be the single hardest habit for a crawl organization to break.
It is. It leads to that dreaded end-of-quarter scramble when finance realizes the forecast missed a huge spike.
So how do organizations get past that? How do they get into the walk phase?
Walk is all about building rhythm and accountability. Forecast costs are now actively tracked against actual usage, and that data becomes the basis for establishing formal budgets.
And the models get more sophisticated.
They do. They mature from static predictions to rolling and trend-based forecasts, updated on a regular cadence, maybe monthly.
And the scope gets bigger too, I'd imagine.
Yep. Walk forecasts start to include things like cloud rate optimization, commitment-based discounts like RIs or savings plans, and crucially, all the key stakeholder teams get access to this shared forecasting data.
So everyone's speaking the same language.
They are. It's functional, but there's still a lot of manual work involved.
Okay, so walk is functional, but with friction. The jump to run must be about eliminating that friction and really dialing in the accuracy. What pushes an organization to that top tier?
The jump to run is where data integrity meets real strategic insight. First, the data source itself changes dramatically. Run forecasts are tracked and updated against discount-adjusted, amortized cloud usage.
Okay, let's pause there because that is a dense, high-value term. Why is using amortized data so critical? Why not just simple usage?
Because simple usage data is really misleading. If a team buys a huge 3-year reservation up front, the entire cost hits the bill in month 1.
Right, which makes their spending look insane for that month and tiny for the rest.
Exactly. Amortization smooths the cost of that commitment across the period of use. It gives you a true, actionable picture of the team's operational cost responsibility for that month.
So you're measuring consumption, not just billing cycles.
You got it. And second, the models themselves mature. They become a combination of rolling, trend-based, and driver-based.
Okay, so instead of just last month's bill plus 10%, a driver-based model links cost directly to a business KPI. Can you give us an example?
Absolutely. If you're a SaaS company, your forecast might not look at CPU. It looks at user count. A driver-based model says, if marketing forecasts a 20% increase in user signups, the model automatically knows that translates into a 15% need for more database storage.
Wow. So leadership can look at that and say, we expect X revenue from this growth, and the required cloud investment is Y.
That's the power of it. And the final marker of run is integration and automation. Granular visibility, automated data flows into accounting systems.
A single source of truth for everyone.
For everyone, executives, engineering, finance. The manual friction is gone because the system is operating continuously.
That sounds seamless, but getting there requires, some difficult cross-functional work.
Yeah.
Let's pivot to the people side. What specific activities do the different personas handle?
This is all about defining the roles and, more importantly, the handoffs. The FinOps practitioner and finance teams are sort of the core designers and reporters.
They set the rules of the game.
They do. They develop the strategy, set the due dates, generate the forecasts, and provide that continuous reporting on budgets versus actuals versus forecast.
Okay, running the scoreboard.
Yeah.
What about product? They're focused on value.
The product personas are the value validators.
Yeah.
Their main job is to provide those product-centric KPIs.
The user signups, the transaction volumes.
The very things that feed those driver-based models. And they also set the forecast variance thresholds that make sense for their product line. They're the voice of business outcome.
And then you have engineering, the implementers.
And the monitors. They're responsible for watching the forecasts, seeing when projections exceed budgets, and then working with FinOps to find optimization opportunities now to avoid that overspend.
Okay, wait. I want to challenge the source material here for a second.
Go for it.
It says engineering must get approval for plan changes that negatively impact spend projections. I mean, isn't that just adding bureaucratic friction? Doesn't that slow down innovation?
That is a completely valid concern, and it really highlights the inherent tension in FinOps. In a mature organization, this isn't bureaucracy, it's due diligence.
Yeah.
The requirement isn't to stop the change, it's to quantify the cost and make sure the business agrees the value justifies it. If a change will cost an extra 100 grand next month, engineering doesn't have to stop.
But finance and leadership need to know immediately.
So they can adjust the budget or reprioritize. It forces the conversation before deployment, not after.
That makes perfect sense. Financial discipline as a prerequisite for speed.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leaves leadership. What's their essential role?
They're the ultimate arbiters. They set the high-level business goals, and they manage competing priorities. When forecasted spend for one project impacts the budget for another high-priority one, leadership makes the hard choice.
The trade-offs.
The trade-offs. They ensure the organization moves forward while staying financially disciplined.
That's a really tight breakdown of accountability. So to wrap up the mechanics, what fuel are we putting into this machine? What are the key required inputs for a good forecast?
If you're missing any of these three, your forecast is going to fail. First, you need high-quality cost and usage information from reporting and analytics.
The historical data.
The foundation. Second, you need those forward-looking estimates from planning and estimating what engineering thinks they'll spend on new projects.
Right.
And third, you need the functional and non-functional requirements, performance, compliance, scalability. You can't model the future if you don't know the constraints.
And the output, as we said, is the forecast model that flows into budgeting. So now, the scorecard. After all this work, what's the key measure of success?
The most crucial KPI, the one that really tells you if the organization trusts this whole process, is the forecast cost versus actual cost trends within an established percentage threshold of variance.
The forecast accuracy.
Yes. And you can't overstate how important that is. If the agreed upon variance is, say, plus or minus 5%, and you're constantly hitting 15 or 20,
The forecast is useless.
it's useless, and trust in the whole FinOps process just erodes. Hitting that tight variance shows alignment, accuracy, and data integrity.
And what other KPIs show we're moving toward that run maturity?
We look at model quality. Are you using that high fidelity, discount adjusted, amortized?
Necessary.
Exactly. Then process automation. Are there automated notifications when you exceed the variance threshold?
Taking action in the present.
And finally, accountability. Are teams actually being held responsible for managing their budgets based on this data? If the data isn't driving behavior, it's just a report.
And that brings us full circle. This deep dive has really shown that accurate financial forecasting is so much more than an accounting chore. It informs investment, it dictates strategy.
And it helps organizations accelerate growth responsibly by quantifying those trade-offs.
It's the connective tissue.
It is. A strong forecasting capability benefits everyone. It impacts anomaly management, it improves on-prem capital spending decisions, it enhances cloud value, and it even helps track, environmental impacts related to cloud sustainability.
But there's a final foundational truth we have to end on.
We do. Forecasting isn't an isolated task. It's the output of a mature FinOps practice. You have to have other things, like robust cost allocation and tagging, in place first. A forecast is only as good as the data you feed it.
Well put. It really is the hallmark of an organization that has mastered its cloud finances. And since we've established that a strong forecasting capability informs so many broader metrics, from TCO to expected revenue and even sustainability, here is the provocative thought we want to leave you with. For a truly mature run organization, one that's consistently hitting, say, sub 5% variance, which of these broader organizational impacts should be tracked as the primary KPI? Should it be the financial stability TCO alignment or the strategic value of linking cost directly to predicted revenue growth?
Something to mull over as you align your models to your next horizon. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into cloud forecasting.
We'll catch you next time.